Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome a very accomplished professional from the social sector from the Netherlands, currently speaking to us from the UK, Willeke van Rijn. Willeke,
Thanks very
welcome to the
much.
show.
Yeah, thanks very much. And thanks for having me here.
Thank you. Willeke is the Chief Executive Officer of the Resource Alliance. She earlier led the strategy and analysis team at SOS Children's Villages, and she's also formerly been a consultant for Fundis in Mexico. So, Willeke, before we talk about the Resource Alliance, tell me about your own journey and what motivated you to dedicate your career to the nonprofit sector.
Thanks very much, Ashutosh. I actually started in the private sector. My first role was in marketing within an IT company. So that was completely different. And then I was one of those kind of early 20-years that really wanted to travel the world. So I did my backpacking and I came back and I really thought after that an international private sector or private company would be the answer for me. But it wasn't anymore. I think it shifted too much my perspective about what is going on in the world. And I really wanted to shift my approach from what I would call profit optimization to impact optimization. So I moved to Oxfam quite soon afterwards and had a beautiful opportunity to work and live in different parts of the world. A couple of years in India, in Mexico, and in Nepal. Yeah, and
how wonderful.
Ended in the end up in the UK. So yeah, it's a long time since I've lived and worked in the Netherlands. I left the Netherlands in 2006.
Wow.
But very happy to live and work in different parts of the world. Yeah.
Fascinating, fascinating. So let's talk about the Resource Alliance. As the Chief Executive Officer of the Resource Alliance, tell me, what does the Alliance do and what are your primary goals?
Yeah, thanks very much for that question. So the Resource Alliance, I think it's best described as a global community. We are a global community that is engaging and connecting at the moment with around 30,000 resource mobilizers. And with resource mobilizers, we actually mean everyone who works towards either achieving the resources to fulfill the purposes of non-profit organizations. And that could be by people raising their voice, people giving a donation. So we're talking about fundraisers, we're talking about campaigners, we're talking about change makers and innovators, really to see how we can achieve that purpose that is needed to either end poverty, to tackle climate change. And what the Resource Alliance does is sharing a lot of best practices. So there are a lot of new solutions in how to do that. And we see that happening from different parts of the world. And by kind of collecting those new innovative approaches, we want to disseminate them as fast as possible with as many as people across the world to really see and use them as building blocks that they can then start to use in their own organization. We also want to link and connect people because we strongly believe that each on their own and every organization on their own won't be a solution. Ending poverty won't be done by Oxfam alone. Tackling the climate won't be done by Greenpeace alone. So we need to come together there, and we see that the community is also providing an opportunity there to collaborate, to link, connect, and to collaborate with each other. And we do that via events. We do that. We are very well known for the International Fundraising Congress, which is held for the past 40 plus years in the Netherlands, actually, because that's where it originally all started, and will be held in October again. But we also do a lot of virtual work. We just finished a virtual conference that's called FRO, Fundraising Online, where, of course, we also look at AI perspectives. And we do a lot of trainings in countries across the world, but also virtual for anyone, who needs some support and opportunities to
wonderful.
Either raise more funds to do campaigning work. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. And when it comes to raising money, you are obviously experts at this, but what are some of the challenges that you or other organizations face when it comes to resource development?
Well, first of all, I think we always want to raise more funds. That is sometimes a challenge in itself.
Yes.
But I think if we're really looking at what are some of the key challenges, the key challenges is you know, if you think you have a couple of donors and that's really going well, it doesn't always provide an opportunity or a guarantee for the future. So diversifying income sources is really crucial. Because you either have economic fluctuations, you might have organizations and funders or donors that fluctuate. So one of the key challenges is, I think, really looking at that portfolio of different income sources. And I think a second part that we definitely see is the role as a fundraiser. You know, the fundraiser is not something that people get born and think, you know what, one day I will become a fundraiser. Many people roll into that job. And I think if you're really looking at resource mobilization, also at campaigning work, it's really people that make this big success. So yeah, where do you find the right people
Fascinating.
to support the work that you're doing?
Fascinating. So then what would you say, Willeke, are some of the key components of a successful fundraising strategy?
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting question. What are the key components? Well, first of all, it should be very clearly aligned with the work that you are doing. You know, it should really clearly outline why are you raising funds. Because raising funds is not the end goal. It is a means and a tool to address something else, you know, a bigger purpose that you want to establish. What we definitely notice is that it's not a transactional approach anymore. You're really building a relationship with the donor, with the funder, the partner. And that could be a large major donor, that could be an institutional donor, but it also could be an individual giver who gives maybe a bit small amount of money, but still very relevant. And that belonging and engagement and that constituency building is a really crucial element of it. So don't really see it, I think, fundraising strategy as simply raising money, but how do you create that engagement with your organization? And maybe also other opportunities to do that are out there. Yeah. And then sometimes that means people do voluntary work for you in addition to giving a donation, or sometimes that means they will raise your voice for you or sign a petition or give you maybe inputs on how you could strengthen the work that you're doing in a better way.
Fascinating. And one of the follow-up questions based on what you've just said is, how important is storytelling in fundraising? And how can nonprofits leverage storytelling effectively?
I would almost say a fundraiser is a storyteller. If you can't be or if you're not a storyteller as being a fundraiser, that's really complicated. You're kind of the linking pin between somebody who donates money towards the organization and the programmatic work on the other side. And I think that connection is what makes the role as a fundraiser so beautiful. You know, you have often direct access to campaigning work, and that could be programmatic work in different parts of the world. That could be a campaign activity that is happening out there. And because you are directly via the organization connected with it, that's a story you can tell to donors as well. That's why you need support and how you can get involved, but also to provide feedback about this is what your donation does and this is the impact that it achieves. And again, there, I would almost say there you link and connect people from across the globe with each other. That's the beautiful part in it. I think one additional thing there to tell is who's telling the story. That's a very big, interesting topic at the moment as well. Is it a fundraiser or is it a direct voice from the programmatic work? And that is a shift that we definitely see happening at the moment, and something that we as Resource Alliance try to communicate and share a lot as well about how that can be done and how that is done in certain setups. That is quite new for some organizations.
Thank you. And therefore, if storytelling is such an important part of raising money, based on all your experience, what are some of the mistakes a lot of nonprofits make when it comes to resource development?
What are some of the mistakes? Well, I addressed already a bit about the transactional element. I think the mistake is do not simply ask for money. Ask really people to be part of something, something that's bigger than money alone. That purpose element is really crucial. You're raising money to achieve something else, and that's the beautiful story, I think. And then also, I think another mistake is sometimes you can get really addressed on getting those new connections in. but what do we do with the existing connections?
Mm.
You know, the existing donors that are already there and that are already supporting you. Do you really keep them engaged in the work that you are doing? Yeah, and that means sometimes as well, you know, we should not think for the donor, but we should ask the donor and the funder what they think or how they look at certain perspectives. You know, remain a curiosity, I would say,
Correct.
and really believe that people want to be part of a broader solution.
Great response. Thank you. My next question, Willeke, is what is the role of technology, given there's so much technology all over the world now? What is the role of technology in resource development that you see today?
Yeah, well, there's a lot. Let's not even get started about AI, what that will bring at the moment, also in resource mobilization. What is the role of technology? Well, one, of course, technology really means the reach to many more people, not only in country, not in your own kind of smaller area, geographical area, but you can reach people from all over the world. And that means if you're talking about resource mobilization, you can reach people that want to give a donation or people that want to raise their voice in different parts of the world. But also it means the other way around. You know, if your campaigning work or your programmatic work is in different parts of the world, you can bring it closer to them. Maybe I should share a beautiful example here. And that was actually from an organization in the Netherlands, where somebody would leave a legacy. And we knew that this person would leave a legacy when she would pass away. And the person in that specific organization would come every year to the specific woman to, you know, to say thanks for that and to have a conversation with her about the work that the organization is doing. And she really started saying, how can we really explain that in the best way? And she brought VR glasses. You know, so the woman, I think, is in her 80s, and suddenly via the VR glasses was walking around in a village in Ghana where the programmatic work was, and she could see and meet literally all the people there. And was blown away by it. You know, she had heard the stories about it, but suddenly by really being engaged almost in such a direct way, and that connection was much stronger. And this is just an element in how to bring the world kind of closer to people. I would say other elements are, of course, if people focus or organizations focus on individual givers. We work a lot with CRM systems to analyze data in the right way. And from there, of course, AI tools and techniques are coming into place right now as well, how you can make the right data analysis, but also the prognosis and the projections moving forward. So yeah, technology is used in
I love the
many
example.
different ways.
I just love the example of the VR goggles, and I'm sure a lot of people who will listen to our conversation will pick this idea from you and see how they can use VR goggles to bring the recipients to life in front of donors. That's so wonderful. That's so wonderful. The other aspect of fundraising is communication. So my question is, how do you engage and retain donors in a highly competitive environment?
Yeah, first of all, I have always a big issue with the word competition when it comes to non-profit organizations.
We'll change the word.
And I will explain why, and it comes a little bit back to the beginning of this part. If we're really looking at the big challenges that we face at the moment, you know, how do we end extreme poverty? How do we create equity around the world? How do we challenge climate change? We have to work together. And there, sometimes as organizations, we have to move beyond the boundaries of our organization. So it is not necessarily the logo that's on top of the organization that we are working for, but we have to keep in mind it's the purpose that we are working for. And together we are much stronger there. So that is definitely one element. How do you communicate? Of course, brand building is important. You know, it says something about trust. It says what you're standing for. That says what the work is that you're doing, and that is really crucial. And there, I think the engagement element is really a strong part. That relationship building instead of the transactional part, like a one-off donation and we are done. No, really understand that your donors often want to do more than simply one donation, or want to do more sometimes even than a donation or being a donor. If there are other ways to support it,
Right.
that's really crucial there as well. So yeah, communicating, storytelling, and that's almost at the heart of everything. Yeah.
And there is also, I know for a fact in India that there is a need for a certain percentage of profits of every company to be set aside for CSR.
Yeah.
My question is, what role do you see corporate social responsibility in supporting nonprofit goals?
I think it's really crucial. And the policy that is in place in India, I think, is a beautiful example for other countries as well. A certain percentage of profits towards social impact. I mean, how beautiful is that? And we know that the numbers are very big and large in India. We had earlier this year an Indian fundraising conference where a research was done and where they actually explained that in the next couple of years, up to 2027, the amount probably will increase by $3 billion, which is fantastic, if you really think that that money will become available for social impact. What I personally really like about it, and I think what we see happening across the world, is that profit optimization versus impact optimization, in the past that were kind of two separate sectors. You had the private sector on one hand and you had the non-profit sector on the other hand. And that becomes closer together right now. You really see social enterprises arise everywhere across the world, where that social impact and impact optimization becomes much more important. But you also see non-profit organizations working with impact investment and financial return on investment on certain grants that have been provided. So that's not completely a grant, but that's actually some financial benefits can return as well. So there's that shifting and becoming closer, the different organizations and sectors becoming closer and working together, I think, is really crucial. And of course, you see that also happening with private sector and the government working together with social impact sector. And I think, again, their collaboration is really crucial for that large impact.
Well said. The next question for you, Willeke, is, that most social sector or nonprofit sector organizations work closely in building and nurturing partnerships. I'd love to understand from you, what strategies have you found effective to nurture partnerships?
If I'm really honest, the Resource Alliance, it says it already in its name. We are an alliance. The Resource Alliance team is really small, but our community is very large. And we only can create the impact that we are achieving at the moment by creating alliances. So our community is a global community, and the Resource Alliance is really looking at global opportunities and linking those connections with the different countries and different parts of the world. But we are working very closely together with local or national fundraising associations, civil society associations, or any other partners to really understand what kind of new initiatives are happening locally, so that we can share that across the globe. But also, what are important topics locally that probably other countries are already working upon, that we can then bring in that country and share with our local partners.
Right.
And for example, the India Fundraising Conference earlier this year was a beautiful example of it, where we worked together with an Indian partner, the ILSS, it's the India Leaders for Social Sector, where they brought in the local expertise and we brought in the international expertise based on a consultation process that we did in India, and therefore really feeding a local agenda, with both elements. And I think, in everything together we are much stronger.
Very interesting. And can you give me an example of an innovative fundraising campaign that you were involved in?
Well, there are several ones. I really like the example from the VR. It was not my personal campaign, but I really liked it. For me, some successful campaigns, I doubt if they're so innovative, were a lot where we brought different departments together in organizations. We have done, when I worked for Oxfam in the past, we have done really some work around education where we brought fundraising and campaigning work together. We brought it together by really expanding it in festivals, but sometimes also expanding it with partners. We had a big supermarket chain spreading the word for us. So yeah, these kind of examples always worked.
Okay.
As you can hear, I always look for partnerships. So yeah, even in the campaigning work. And we are about to start with Resource Alliance, and maybe that's nice to share as well. We are about to launch a digital platform. And that's something that I'm very excited about, where we will provide a lot of our content that we have from different events and really share that with everyone who would be interested in it. So kind of creating a virtual community where people can link and connect and share their best practices, but also find solutions around certain topics in an easy way, and creating access and equity for everyone. That's really crucial for us. So yeah, I'm very excited about that new campaign to get on.
Yeah, fascinating. And I have time for two more questions. My next question is, and I'm going to ask you to look at your crystal ball and tell me, what trends do you see shaping the future of fundraising in the nonprofit sector?
Well, the first one I think is already where we were talking about the different sectors coming closer together. It is not the non-profit sector that's creating social impact. There are many other organizations and sometimes also individuals that are really doing a lot. If you look at recent movements that have been built, like Black Lives Matter, like the Me Too movement, they were all movements that were built by individuals. Think about big movements like Greta created for climate change. They're individuals are not necessarily aligned already with a non-profit organization. So we see social impact happening everywhere. I mentioned around social enterprises that are rising, and the number of B Corp organizations that are kind of booming at the moment. So I think that is a big opportunity. And the question is, how does each and everyone link and connect with each other? Because there we can create big impact. So that is definitely one aspect. I think another aspect, what we are seeing is, in the past, sometimes campaign and fundraising activities were happening in country or in the kind of geographical boundaries. What we see happening with our new virtual world, social media, digital, is that those geographical boundaries are actually not that relevant anymore. We see some organizations really focusing on different languages, who do campaigns in an English language, in a Spanish language, in a French language, in an Arabic language, to reach out to many more people across different geographical areas. And it might not be relevant for every organization, but it is an interesting trend that has become possible. Yeah, and I really believe that what we were mentioning about, people really want to be involved and want to belong and want to engage. And I think that remains a very important aspect. I wouldn't say it's a new trend, but it is still very relevant, maybe even more relevant today. Yeah.
Fascinating. And my last question to you, Willeke, as you look ahead, and you've spent many years in the social sector, what are your own personal goals for contributing to the nonprofit sector through your work at the Resource Alliance?
Yeah, I think my personal goal is really to create those links and connections and collaboration opportunities. That's what drives me. And especially when it happens from different parts of the world. Something that I'm really proud of is to see when people in India are connecting with people in South Africa and people in Brazil about one and the same topic, and are really exchanging with each other how they can either kickstart it or how they can build on the success there and really make it either bigger or impactful or relevant for different organizations in different parts of the world. And I think that connection element is really crucial. Yeah, and that kind of openness and that willingness to share with each other and not seeing each other as competition, but really as a supporting role, is something that I salute. And I'm very proud of that the Resource Alliance Global Community does already. but I strongly believe we have a lot of opportunity there to grow and expand it. And that, I think, comes then together with access and equity. I do not want that to happen for people who can afford to come to an event to the Netherlands, but also doesn't matter where you are, or which corner of the globe. If you can have that access and can share your new innovation and best practices and solutions with the rest of the world, yeah, that will be beautiful.
Well said. Well said. And on that note, Willeke, I just want to say thank you so much for speaking to me about your own journey. Thank you for speaking to me at such length about the Resource Alliance, your goals, all the great work you and your colleagues are doing. I always have great admiration for people who give back through the social sector. As I was mentioning to you, I served on the board of the Gavi Alliance, and I used to see the incredible amount of effort everyone used to do. I was a non-executive board member, but I used to see people in the Gavi Alliance really devoting their entire life to their cause, and I see you doing the same. Thank you for talking to me and helping a lot of our viewers and listeners understand the importance of storytelling when it comes to fundraising. And thank you also for talking to me about the VR example. I think that's something which I will always remember. It is so fascinating about how you can actually make a challenge come alive in front of someone from a remote distance. Thank you for speaking to me, and good luck to you.
Thanks very much, Ashutosh. It was a real pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.